The woman in the blue coat. The cold wind rattled the glass door of the downtown branch of Bellevue Bank. Inside, the morning sun cast long shadows across the polished floor. A soft chime echoed as the door creaked open. Heads barely turned. It was just an old woman, maybe in her 70s, dressed in a faded blue coat that hung off her thin shoulders like it didn't belong. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched an old brown handbag. Her eyes were kind, but there was tiredness in them, a kind that life puts there, not time. The receptionist barely glanced up. "Take a number," she said flatly, already turning her gaze back to her screen. The woman didn't argue. She slowly reached for the small ticket from the dispenser, wincing as her fingers struggled with the button. She found a chair in the corner, far from the heater vents. It squeaked as she sat down. Minutes ticked by. She checked her ticket. Number 64. The display read 49. A tall man in a sharp suit leaned over to the teller. "Who's that?" he muttered, nodding toward the old woman. The teller shrugged. "Don't know. She's been coming in all week. Something about a lost pension check. Keeps saying someone cashed it. Doesn't make sense." "Ugh," the man said, wrinkling his nose. "Smells like mothballs. Just tell her we're not a charity." Another staff member laughed. "We should have installed a bench outside. She could wait there." Finally, number 64 lit up. The woman stood slowly, knees stiff. She moved with care, as if each step cost her something. When she reached the teller's window, the young man didn't bother hiding his annoyance. "Ma'am, like I told you yesterday, we checked your file. No funds were withdrawn here." "But my pension," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never touched it. I waited all week. Someone took it. I have nothing left, not even for food." The teller sighed and leaned back. "We're not the police. If you think there was fraud, file a report. But please, this is not something we can keep discussing." "Please," she said again. "I've been banking here for 20 years. And rules have changed," the teller snapped. "Maybe it's time you found a bank that suits your needs." A man in a dark coat standing near the ATM turned his head. His eyes narrowed as he listened. The manager arrived, tone clipped and professional. "Ma'am, you've caused enough disruption this week. We're asking you, kindly, to leave." Security guard stepped forward. The woman looked around embarrassed, then down at the ground. "But I just need to speak to someone who cares." The security guard took her gently by the arm. "Let me walk you out." She didn't resist, not because she agreed, but because she had nothing left to fight with. As she was led toward the door, a quiet voice spoke up from the back of the room. "Excuse me." Everyone turned. The man in the dark coat stepped forward. His long hair fell just past his shoulders. His expression was calm but firm. It was Keanu Reeves. The staff blinked in surprise. Someone whispered, "Is that really him?" He didn't smile. Instead, he walked up to the manager, eyes focused. "Is this how you treat your elderly customers?" Keanu asked softly, but his voice cut through the air like thunder. The manager straightened. "Sir, this is a private matter. We ask that you not interfere." Keanu looked at the old woman. She stood frozen near the door, eyes wide. He turned back to the manager. "I'd like to make a large deposit," he said, "but not in a bank that humiliates someone who only wanted to be heard." The room fell into silence. The teller who had mocked her earlier stepped back, swallowing hard. "What's her name?" Keanu asked gently. The woman turned. "Edith," she said quietly. "Edith Lorne." Keanu nodded. "Miss Edith, would you allow me to help you?" She hesitated. Then she gave a small, sad smile. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he replied. And with that, everything began to change. The manager stumbled over his words. "Mr. Reeves, we didn't know." "You don't need to know who someone is," Keanu said. "You just need to know they're human." In that moment, the room wasn't a bank. It was a lesson, a reminder, and no one could look away. The coffee shop conversation, after the silence in the bank, no one moved. It was like time paused, unsure what to do next. Keanu gently placed a hand on Edith's shoulder and guided her outside. The wind outside was biting, but he didn't flinch. Edith, on the other hand, hugged her thin coat tighter. "Do you like coffee?" he asked softly as they walked down the sidewalk. She nodded slowly, unsure of what was happening. "I used to. I haven't had a warm cup in weeks, maybe." Keanu smiled faintly. "Then today's a good day to start again." They reached a small, quiet coffee shop just around the corner, the kind of place with wooden chairs, faded wallpaper, and a chalkboard menu that hadn't changed in years. The barista recognized Keanu immediately, eyes widening, but he held up a finger to his lips. The barista nodded in silent respect. Keanu helped Edith to a booth by the window. Sunlight spilled across the table, lighting her weathered hands as she held the ceramic cup he placed before her. "Cream and sugar?" he asked. "Just sugar, thank you." For a few moments they sipped in silence. Then Keanu leaned in gently. "Edith, I saw what happened back there. You don't need to tell me everything, but if you feel like sharing, I'm here." Edith looked down, stirring her coffee slowly. "I wasn't always like this. I had a job, a house, a husband. We were ordinary. We saved every penny. And when he passed, I thought the pension would keep me afloat. But someone got into my account. And when I reported it, no one listened." Keanu's jaw tightened. "How much was taken?" "Not much to the world," she said with a soft laugh. "A little over 3,000. But to me, that was groceries, heating, medicine." Keanu nodded. "It's not about the number. It's about trust." Edith blinked back tears. "That bank, I've walked in and out of those doors for 20 years. They used to know my name. Now I'm just a problem to move along." Keanu leaned back in the booth. "What if I told you I could help you get it all back?" Edith chuckled sadly. "You're kind, but I've been told so many empty things this year. I'm too tired to hope again." "I'm not offering hope," he said calmly. "I'm offering action." She looked at him, eyes searching. "Why? You don't even know me." Keanu paused, then spoke gently. "When I was younger, I saw my own mother cry because a man refused her help at a grocery store. He looked at her like she didn't belong. I stood there, frozen, too scared to speak. I never forgot that day. And I promised myself, if I ever saw someone treated like that again, I wouldn't stay silent." Edith wiped her eyes with a napkin. "Your mother raised a good man." Keanu smiled faintly. "Thank you. Now tell me, do you remember any names from the bank? Anyone who dismissed you, laughed at you?" Edith nodded slowly. "The teller, Alan, and the manager, Mr. Dawson." Keanu pulled out his phone. "And what's the name of your branch?" "Bellevue downtown." He typed silently, then put the phone down. "Okay, I'll handle this." "What do you mean?" she asked nervously. "I mean," he said, "you're not going back in there alone, and neither am I." The next day, Keanu returned to the bank. He wasn't alone. A few journalists from local news stations stood near the sidewalk, curious. Keanu had quietly called them the night before, not to seek attention, but to expose a pattern. This wasn't just about Edith. Inside, the same teller, Alan, saw him first and nearly choked on his words. Mr. Reeves, you're back?" Keanu didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the security camera above the desk and looked straight into it. He spoke calmly, but firmly. "I'm here today because yesterday this bank publicly humiliated a woman who was trying to ask for help. She wasn't treated with dignity. She was treated like an inconvenience. And I want to know why." The manager, Mr. Dawson, came rushing out from his office. "Mr. Reeves, please, let's discuss this privately." "No," Keanu said. "Edith's embarrassment wasn't private, so neither is this." By now, phones were out. Employees frozen behind their counters. The news crew pushed through the door. Keanu continued. "Edith Lorne reported a pension theft. She asked for help. You dismissed her, laughed at her, and told her to leave. Does that sound like customer care?" Mr. Dawson's face paled. We followed protocol. Then maybe your protocol needs changing. Keanu pulled a piece of paper from his coat pocket. This is a letter from a cybersecurity expert I contacted. They reviewed Edith's account, and guess what? There was unauthorized activity. Someone did access her funds using a cloned card, and you never bothered to look deeper. Gasps rippled through the room. Edith stood quietly near the entrance, holding her blue coat tight. Keanu turned to her and smiled. Come on in, Edith. She walked in slowly, head high this time. Keanu faced the crowd. This is what respect looks like. It's not about money. It's about how we treat people, especially those who need us most. Someone in the crowd whispered, He's right. Keanu handed the report to the manager. You can start by giving her a written apology, and you're going to open an investigation into how your system failed her. The manager nodded stiffly, defeated. Keanu turned to Edith. You deserve better than silence. And you're not alone anymore. Edith's eyes filled with tears. But this time they were tears of something else, something she thought she had lost. Dignity. More than a mistake, Edith sat across from Keanu in the same coffee shop, her eyes still red from tears. But this time, they weren't from pain. They were from something much rarer. She felt seen. She felt heard. The entire city now knew what had happened, and for the first time in a long while, she wasn't invisible. The barista brought over a small vanilla muffin, warm and soft. On the house, he said, placing it gently beside her coffee. You remind me of my Nana. She passed last year. She would have been proud of what you did today. Edith looked at him, surprised. I didn't do anything. You did, Keanu said softly. You stood your ground. And now people are paying attention. She took a bite of the muffin, and for a moment everything felt peaceful. But Keanu's eyes were still focused, still searching, still not finished. Edith, he said, leaning in. Do you remember if you ever spoke to anyone else at the bank about your pension? Not just staff, but customers, visitors, anyone who might have noticed you. Edith thought for a moment. There was one man. He wore a gray suit and had a badge. He said he worked with pension funds and could help me check my balance faster if I gave him my card for scanning. I was so tired that day I didn't even question it. Keanu's jaw clenched. Do you remember his name? She shook her head. No, just that he smiled a lot. Too much, if that makes sense. Keanu nodded. It does. He took out his phone again and dialed a number. Rachel, it's me. Yeah, I need another favor. Can you cross-check Bellevue downtown security footage from last Monday? Look for a man in a gray suit who interacted with an elderly woman, likely near the entrance. He hung up and looked at Edith. We're not just going to fix the symptoms. We're going to find the root. By evening, the story had already begun to spread. Social media lit up with posts of Keanu Reeves defends elderly woman at bank, and bank accused of ignoring fraud victim. The comments poured in, most supportive, others furious. But not everyone was happy. Inside a dimly lit apartment, a man in a gray suit paced back and forth. He stared at his phone, reading the headlines, his face twisted with anger. This wasn't supposed to blow up, he hissed. He threw the phone onto the couch and sat down heavily. His name was Trent Walker, and for the past year he had been running a quiet scheme with two other insiders, low-level staff at different branches who passed him access to dormant accounts or vulnerable customers. Edith had been one of them. He didn't expect her to come back, or for some actor to make it national news. He pulled out a burner phone and made a call. We've got a problem. The Reeves guy is digging. A voice replied on the other end. Lay low, delete everything. We'll handle him. Trent hung up, but his nerves didn't settle. He knew better. People like Keanu Reeves didn't just let things go. The next day, Keanu met with a retired cybersecurity officer named Jose Ramirez, a friend who owed him a favor. We tracked the card, cloned to a small reader installed near the bank's main ATM, Jose explained. It was only there for one day, then gone. Whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing. Keanu nodded. Can we trace the data? Barely, Jose said. But one slip-up gave us a clue. The cloned card was used the next morning. At a gas station, security footage showed the guy in a gray suit. Keanu's face darkened. We have him. Meanwhile, the bank's headquarters was now in damage control mode. A senior executive, Mrs. Thompson, had been reviewing the footage and reports. I want every staff member at that branch reviewed, she said to her assistant. And bring in Edith Lorne for an official apology. She deserves that much. Edith received the call the same afternoon. She was sitting in her small apartment, the heater barely working, when her landline rang. Miss Lorne, the voice said. This is Margaret Thompson from Bellevue Corporate. We would like to meet with you personally, if you're comfortable. There's something we need to say face to face. Edith's hands trembled again, but this time from surprise. Okay, she whispered. Keanu Reeves will be joining us as your guest if that's all right. Yes, she said. I'd like that very much. The next day, Edith walked into the corporate building, this time not as a burden, but as someone important, someone respected. Keanu walked beside her in silence. When they entered the conference room, a long table awaited. Executives stood up. Some looked ashamed, others looked afraid. Mrs. Thompson stepped forward. Miss Lorne, on behalf of Bellevue Bank, we deeply apologize for the way you were treated. It was unacceptable. We failed you. Edith looked around, the room, her voice soft but strong. You didn't just fail me. You failed everyone like me. The quiet ones, the tired ones, the ones too polite to shout, Keanu added. And I hope this isn't just a public statement. I hope this is the beginning of change. Mrs. Thompson nodded. It will be. Starting now. They handed Edith a check. Not just for the stolen funds, but an additional amount, as an apology and gesture of goodwill. Edith looked at it, then at Keanu. This isn't just about money, she said. I know, he replied. Then her eyes grew more serious. But what about the man in the gray suit? Keanu leaned in. We're working on it, and we're close. That night, Jose sent Keanu a message. Subject found. Gray suit. Name. Trent Walker. Background. Former security consultant. Wanted in 3 other states. Keanu stared at the screen. Trent didn't know it yet, but he had just become the target of something he never expected. Kindness had teeth, and it was coming for him. The face behind the fraud rain fell softly on the city, as Keanu sat by the window in Edith's apartment. The old radiator clicked every now and then, barely pushing warmth into the room. Outside, cars rolled by under dim streetlights, and inside the air was still heavy with everything that had happened in the last 2 days. Edith poured tea into 2 chipped mugs and handed one to Keanu. You've done enough, she said gently. You don't need to keep going. Keanu looked at her, steady and calm. But I want to. It's not just about you anymore, Edith. If that man's done this to others, he needs to be stopped. She sat beside him. You remind me of my son, she said quietly. He passed away in 2007. Cancer. He used to fight for everyone but himself. Never raised his voice, but he always stood up for people. Keanu gave a soft smile. Maybe we were meant to meet. Just then, his phone buzzed. A message from Jose. Got a location. Walker's staying at Maplewood Inn, room 212. Quiet place on the edge of town. Keanu stood up slowly. We're getting closer. Trent Walker had locked the door to his room at the Maplewood Inn and was packing fast. His hands shook as he shoved laptops and cash into a worn duffel bag. He'd already ditched 2 burner phones, all his accounts. Were being closed one by one. Someone was coming for him. He opened his laptop one last time and saw the news. Local hero Keanu Reeves helps elderly fraud victim. Corporate bank launches full investigation. His own face appeared on screen, blurred, and caught from a gas station camera. Not clear, but close enough. Trent cursed under his breath and slammed the lid shut. His car was outside. If he could just make it out of the city, he had a plan. But when he opened the door, someone was waiting. Evening, Trent. Trent's heart stopped. Standing under the dim motel hallway light was Keanu Reeves wearing a black jacket and calm expression. Behind him stood a tall man with a camera slung over his shoulder. Jose. "I didn't come to fight," Keanu said. "But I'm not letting you run." Trent stepped back. "This isn't your business." Keanu didn't move. "It became my business the moment you took advantage of someone too tired to scream." "She gave me the card," Trent snapped. "She trusted me. Not my fault. You lied to her. You stole from her. You humiliated her in public. And you laughed." Trent laughed bitterly. "What are you going to do, drag me to the police?" Keanu stepped forward. "No, but they're already on their way. Your name is linked to accounts flagged in multiple states, and this time, we have proof." Trent looked at Jose. "Who are you?" "The guy who found your mistake," Jose said, lifting his phone to record. Trent lunged, trying to knock the phone away, but Keanu moved first, swiftly stepping between them and holding his ground. "Don't," Keanu warned. The air in the hallway went still. Trent's eyes darted from Keanu's calm face to Jose's phone. Sirens echoed in the distance. Trent lowered his arms. "This isn't over." "For you, maybe it is," Keanu said quietly. "But for people like Edith, it's just beginning." The next morning, Edith turned on the TV just in time to see the story. Bank scam artist caught after actor Keanu Reeves leads investigation. Her hands trembled as she reached for the phone. She dialed Keanu. "It's over?" she asked softly. "He's in custody," Keanu replied. "The police took everything. He'll face charges in multiple states." Edith's voice cracked. You didn't have to do this." "Yes," he said. "I did." A week later, Edith sat on stage at a small community hall, surrounded by families, neighbors, and reporters. A banner read, "Protect Our Elders, Fraud Awareness Day." She stood at the microphone, small and quiet but unshaken. "I never thought anyone would listen to someone like me," she said. "But I learned something. Sometimes all it takes is one person to stop looking away. To stop pretending not to see." She turned to where Keanu sat in the front row. "And sometimes that person is someone you'd never expect." The room clapped, not just for her, but for the truth she carried. Keanu stood to speak next. "We think we have to be superheroes to make a difference," he said. "But sometimes just standing beside someone is enough." After the event, Keanu and Edith walked together to a small garden behind the hall. Flowers were blooming, birds chirped, the sky was calm. "How do you do it?" Edith asked. "Do what?" "Stay so kind, when the world is so sharp." Keanu looked at the clouds. "Because I know what it feels like to hurt, and I know what it feels like to be helped." Edith reached out and touched his arm. "You helped me find something I lost a long time ago." "What's that?" "My voice." Keanu looked at her with quiet warmth. "Then keep using it." Edith smiled. For the first time in a long while, it reached her eyes. But deep inside the system, not everything was fixed. Behind corporate doors, something darker still lingered. Because Trent Walker wasn't the only one involved. And someone was watching. Deeper roots. 2 weeks had passed since Trent Walker was arrested. For most people, the story had faded from the headlines. Edith was finally smiling again, even laughing when she and Keanu met for morning tea at the same little cafe. But Keanu's eyes remained alert. He had a feeling it wasn't over. And his instincts had never failed him. That feeling was confirmed when Jose called him late one evening. "You need to come see this," Jose said. "There's more." Keanu didn't ask questions. 20 minutes later, they sat together in Jose's apartment surrounded by screens and scattered documents. After Trent's arrest, Jose said, "I dug deeper, looked into every flagged transaction over the last 6 months linked to that branch and its internal systems. Most people would have missed it, but I didn't." He pulled up a screen. There were dozens of account numbers. Red dots glowed on a timeline. These are pension accounts, most inactive or from elderly clients. Every time there's a clone or fraud alert, someone inside the bank overrides the flag, marks it as a false alarm. Keanu leaned forward. You're saying Trent had help from inside? More than that, Jose replied. This is organized. It's a pattern. 3 different employees across 2 branches, same override codes, same time intervals. And they're not just targeting one person. They're targeting the lonely, the quiet, the ones no one checks on. Keanu stared at the data. Who's behind it? I tracked the overrides to a specific employee ID, Jose said. Guess whose name showed up? Keanu didn't move. James Dawson, the same manager who kicked Edith out. Keanu's hands curled into fists. He remembered Dawson's face. So smug, so confident, so dismissive. We were too focused on Trent, Jose continued. Dawson kept his hands clean, never did the cloning himself. But he built the system, he pulled the strings. And Trent was just one of his runners. Keanu stood. We need to go back. The next morning, Keanu walked into Bellevue Bank's headquarters with a different energy. This time, he wasn't asking for justice. He was demanding truth. He requested to speak with Mrs. Thompson. She greeted him kindly, but when he showed her the data Jose had uncovered, her smile faded. Are you sure about this? She asked. Voice, quiet. Completely, Keanu replied. And if we don't act now, more people will suffer. She nodded grimly. Leave it with me. But this goes deep. If Dawson is who you say he is, there might be others involved. We can't just fire him. We'll need evidence strong enough for law enforcement. You'll have it, Keanu said. But I need your word. You'll protect Edith. And anyone else they've hurt. You have my word. Meanwhile, James Dawson sat in his sleek corner office sipping espresso, oblivious. His hands moved quickly over the keyboard, approving account audits. He had perfected the game. Stay invisible. Make it look like policy. Let someone else do the dirty work. But that afternoon, he received a message on his screen. Internal audit requested. Unauthorized override investigation initiated. His fingers paused. A second message arrived. Pending meeting with Mrs. Thompson and legal counsel. He stood abruptly, heart racing. They knew. At the same time, Keanu returned to Edith's apartment. She was pruning the small flowers in her windowsill. You look better, he said. Sunlight helps. She smiled. And tea. And peace. You may want to hold on to that peace for a bit longer, Keanu said gently. There's more going on than we thought. Edith turned, her hands pausing. You mean that manager? Yes. He didn't just ignore you. He was part of the fraud. Maybe even the one in charge. Edith didn't look shocked, just tired. Why am I not surprised? Because people like him count on that, Keanu said. They rely on us believing it'll never change. Edith looked out the window. What do we do now? Keanu smiled. We keep going. That night, an emergency board meeting was held at Bellevue headquarters. Mrs. Thompson presented Jose's full report. Every pattern, every override, every connection. James Dawson sat in silence. His face grew pale as screen after screen lit up, with numbers he thought were buried. This is a mistake, he said. I was just doing my job. You built the system, Mrs. Thompson said coldly. And we have proof. Dawson's voice cracked. You can't pin this all on me. But they already had. By morning, news broke again. Bellevue bank manager, suspended for fraud ties, investigation underway. And beneath the headline, one name appeared again and again. Edith Lorne. A woman once silenced. Now the voice of a movement, she was invited to speak on local news. Then national radio. Even schools asked her to come share her story. Everywhere she went, she told them the same thing. Never ignore the quiet ones. Because one day they might speak. And when they do, the world listens. But not all stories end in silence. In a small cell, Trent Walker received a newspaper slide under his door. On the front page, he saw Dawson's face. He smiled to himself. Finally, he whispered. He knew secrets, big ones, and he was ready to talk, but only to one man, Keanu Reeves. The last truth. Keanu stood outside the county detention center. The air was cool, still, and heavy with something unspoken. Reporters had tried to follow him there, but he had quietly slipped past them. This wasn't about headlines anymore. This was about finishing what was started. For Edith, for all the forgotten voices, and for the truth buried beneath years of silence. Inside, a guard led him through a long hallway. The walls were bare, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly. Keanu's footsteps were calm, steady. When he entered the visitation room, Trent Walker was already seated behind the glass. He looked different now. Thinner, more tired, his smug confidence had faded, replaced by something closer to regret. Or maybe fear. Keanu took a seat and picked up the phone on his side of the glass. Trent did the same. "Why did you ask for me?" Keanu asked. Trent leaned forward. "Because I want out of this alone, and you're the only one who actually listens." Keanu said nothing. Trent sighed. "You think I was the mastermind, but I wasn't. I was just a tool, a pawn." "For who?" Keanu asked. Trent lowered his voice. "The fraud ring was bigger than Dawson. He's part of it, sure, but the real brains, they work above him. They hide behind bank policies, fake security audits, even charity events. You want the truth? Follow the money from the bank's so-called elder care fund. That's where they launder everything." Keanu narrowed his eyes. "Names?" Trent nodded. "I'll give you everything. Accounts, meetings, how they picked victims. But I want a deal. Less time. Protection." Keanu didn't agree. Not yet. He simply stood. "If you're telling the truth, someone will listen." Trent pressed the glass. "They'll try to stop you." Keanu gave a calm smile. "They've already tried." Over. The next week, Jose, Mrs. Thompson, and a small task force dug into Trent's claims. It didn't take long before documents surfaced. Donations that never reached charities. Audits that never happened. And a familiar name showed up again. Harold Myers. He was a senior advisor. The one who created the Elder Care Fund 5 years ago. Highly respected, widely praised. And now, exposed. Keanu watched the footage of him standing on stage last year, speaking about protecting the dignity of our seniors. His voice had sounded so warm. But now, it echoed like a lie. Edith sat beside Keanu as the board reviewed the final reports. "I knew his type," she whispered. "They don't shout. They don't threaten. They smile while they steal." Keanu nodded. But not anymore. When Harold was arrested, the city lit up again with headlines. This time, it wasn't just a scandal. It was a reckoning. Elder fraud. Ring exposed. Keanu Reeves and Edith Lorne lead justice effort. Over 50 seniors to receive recovered funds. New national legislation proposed to protect aging citizens from bank exploitation. Edith was there for every announcement, every interview, every camera. But one day after a long speech at City Hall, she turned to Keanu with tired eyes. "I think I'm ready to rest now," she said softly. Keanu looked at her with deep respect. "You've done more than enough." A month later, Edith moved into a new apartment. A safer one, paid for in part by the very fund that once betrayed her, now redirected to truly help seniors in need. She filled the windows with plants, her cupboards with food, her heart with peace. On her table, beside a framed picture of her late husband, sat a small gift from Keanu. A note attached read, "To Edith, your voice changed everything. Thank you for reminding the world what kindness means." Keanu afternoon. As Keanu walked through the same downtown where it all began, a young girl selling flowers ran up to him. "Are you the man who helped the old lady?" she asked shyly. Keanu crouched beside her. "I tried." She handed him a small yellow flower. "Then you're a hero." He smiled. "I'm just someone who listened." He placed the flower behind his ear, making her giggle. Then he walked on, past the bank, past the noise, past the headlines. Because some stories don't end in courtrooms or speeches. Some stories end in small moments. A hand held, a voice heard, a heart changed, and sometimes that's more than enough.